The San Francisco 49ers are one of the NFL's most fascinating teams heading into the new season, because what happened in 2025 was not just a story about wins and losses, but about survival. This was a roster battered by injuries, forced to reinvent itself on the fly, and yet somehow still dangerous when it mattered most. When you look back at that season, you don't just see statistics. You see a team that had to rediscover its identity week after week, leaning on unexpected heroes and proven superstars alike to keep the championship window from slamming shut. It starts with the obvious centerpiece of the offense, Christian McCaffrey, who didn't just return to form. He re-established himself as one of the most indispensable players in football, going over 2,000 yards from scrimmage in a season where defenses knew he was the focal point speaks to a level of durability and versatility that few players in the modern NFL can match. This wasn't just production. This was gravitational pull. Every defensive coordinator built their game plan around stopping him, and still he delivered. His value wasn't only in explosive plays, but in the stability he gave an offense that cycled through quarterbacks and battled inconsistency along the line. When the game got chaotic, he was the constant. At quarterback, the story of Brock Purdy was less about raw numbers and more about timing. Injuries limited him, early turnovers raised doubts. And yet when the season reached its critical stretch, he delivered some of the most important performances of the year. Those 5 touchdown games weren't just stat lines, they were season-saving moments. They restored rhythm to an offense that had started to drift and reminded everyone why this system functions best with a decisive, timing-based passer under center. His 7-2 record as a starter wasn't just efficiency. It was proof that when healthy, he still gives this team its highest ceiling. The backbone of that offensive stability remained the ageless force on the left side, Trent Williams. At an age when most linemen are long retired, he continued to anchor the line with elite technique and power. His presence allowed the offense to function even when other pieces rotated in and out due to injuries. Without him, the entire structure collapses. With him, the run game remains viable and the quarterback has a fighting chance. That's the kind of impact that doesn't always show up in highlight reels, but defines whether a season survives adversity. Defensively, the emergence of rookie corner Upton Stout told a deeper story about the team's future. Early struggles gave way to confidence, and confidence turned into production. By the second half of the season, he wasn't just holding his own, he was becoming one of the most reliable defenders in the secondary. That development matters because it signals that the next generation of contributors is already taking shape. For a roster trying to extend its competitive window, young defenders stepping into major roles is not optional. It's essential. Even special teams became a storyline thanks to Eddie Pinheiro, whose near-perfect accuracy quietly swung multiple close games. In a season defined by narrow margins, having a kicker you trust from long distance changes late-game strategy entirely. Coaches call plays differently. Opponents defend differently. Field position becomes more valuable. Those subtle advantages add up over a long season, especially for a team grinding through injuries. If you're enjoying this deep breakdown of the 49ers' blueprint for contention, this is the moment to subscribe and stay locked in, because what this team does next could reshape the NFC landscape for years. Looking ahead, the offseason strategy reveals just how aware the organization is of its vulnerabilities. The pass rush, once a defining strength, became alarmingly thin when Nick Bosa went down. That injury exposed how dependent the defense had become on one dominant edge presence. Now the front office faces a philosophical decision: reload through free agency, invest heavily in the draft, or attempt both. The concept of pass rush maxing isn't just a catchy phrase. It reflects a belief that championships are still won by overwhelming pressure up front. Draft projections suggest targets ranging from power edge setters to explosive wide receivers, indicating the team wants to restore balance on both sides of the ball. The offense, once overflowing with pass-catching options, suddenly looks thin after departures and injuries. That's why analysts continue to link the team to speed threats and big-bodied receivers who can win contested catches. In this system, receivers aren't just route runners. They're blockers, motion weapons, and mismatch creators. Finding the right fit matters more than chasing pure talent. The tight end situation adds another layer of urgency. With George Kittle battling injuries, the search for a successor has quietly begun. In this offense, the tight end isn't a luxury piece. It's a structural pillar. The position must block like a lineman, run routes like a receiver, and function as a security blanket for the quarterback. Drafting a dynamic prospect there wouldn't just be about depth. It would be about preserving the identity of the scheme. Then there's the wild card at quarterback depth, Mac Jones, whose relief performances kept the season alive when Purdy was sidelined. His presence creates both security and intrigue. He's affordable, experienced in the system, and valuable as insurance. But strong backup play often attracts trade interest, and that possibility lingers as the offseason unfolds. Teams across the league know how fragile quarterback situations can be, and a proven reserve becomes a coveted asset. On defense, the secondary could see the most dramatic transformation, especially if the team pursues a veteran presence like Minkah Fitzpatrick. His versatility to play deep, in the slot, or near the line of scrimmage would instantly stabilize a unit that showed inconsistency. More importantly, his experience could accelerate the development of younger defensive backs, reducing the mental errors that plague the group in critical moments. For a contender, eliminating those mistakes can be the difference between a playoff run and an early exit. Financially, the organization has the flexibility to be aggressive, and that makes this offseason particularly pivotal. With cap space available and draft capital intact, the front office has no excuse not to address the roster's weak points. The challenge isn't resources. It's choosing the right combination of short-term fixes and long-term investments to keep the championship window open. What makes this moment so compelling is that the 49ers are not rebuilding, and they're not fully reloading either. They're recalibrating. They still have elite talent, still have a proven coaching staff, and still have a system that can overwhelm opponents when functioning properly. But the margin for error has shrunk. Injuries exposed how thin that margin can become. The question now isn't whether this team is good enough to compete. It's whether the front office can anticipate the next wave of challenges before they arrive. Championship teams don't just react. They prepare. They add depth before it's needed, replace aging stars before decline becomes obvious, and reinforce strengths before they turn into weaknesses. As the new season approaches, everything points to a team determined to return stronger, deeper, and more resilient. The lessons of 2025 were harsh, but valuable. They revealed who the foundational players are, which positions require urgent attention, and how fragile even elite rosters can be. If those lessons translate into smart decisions, the 49ers won't just contend again. They could reassert themselves as the standard of power in the conference. If you want to stay ahead of every move, every rumor, and every strategic shift shaping the future of this franchise, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications now, because the road back to a Super Bowl run is already being built.